Okay, Chapter 11 of Staying Fat for Sarah Burns. I've tried to look at Britain from Lemry's point of view, and I really leave him alone away from the pool now. But if I had to go cold turkey, well, life wouldn't be worth living. He's been such an asshole since Jody and I have been seeing each other that today Ellerby and I decided to kill him on the 200s to teach him some humility, letting him lead for 7 laps before eating him up on the 8th. 20 of them like that. He didn't even stay around to shower after workout, which means in an hour he'll feel like he's staked on an anthill from the residual chlorine. Things are finally looking up for Sarah Burns. She's not completely out of the woods, but the cavalry is storming over the horizon. I'm glad because I'm not strong enough or smart enough to carry this load myself. The next time I visited Sacred Heart, we couldn't talk because her dad was there. It was as if he was stalking us. After that, we went outside, but he followed us to the landing at the top of the stairs where he could watch, and Sarah Burns couldn't talk. Finally, I took her hand. Once for yes and twice for no. Do you think he knows you're faking it? She squeezed 3 times. 3. Oh, I don't know. You want 3 to be I don't know? Once. You're not going home with him, are you? Twice, hard. Good. You want me to try to get you some help? Twice, hard again. Wait, I said, hear me out. What if I could work it out so you were protected? I'm not sure, and if I can't, I won't do anything. But if I could, would it be okay? Twice. Sarah Burns didn't trust anyone. She'd been helped before. Still, I didn't believe I could just let her dangle in the wind like this. I also knew if I betrayed her, it would be the last time. Look, I said, I'm going to sneak my notebook and pen into your room, under your mattress. You tell me what to do, or at least tell me what you're going to do. You must have a plan. It's making me crazy to be in the dark, okay? If I leave it, will you write in it? Once. Mr. Burns said, Any luck, boy? As we passed him on the back stair, Sarah Burns staring straight ahead. No, sir. I talked because they said to keep things as normal as possible, but she doesn't answer. This is bullshit, he said, looking past me to Sarah Burns. She's hearing every word, and I'd bet you know that, Calhoun. Tell you what, if I find out it's true, there'll be hell to pay for you, too. Won't always be this hospital to protect her, or you either. If you know something, I should know. You best spill it. I stopped and stared directly into his eyes. Look, Mr. Burns, I said, I'm a lot more afraid of Sarah Burns not talking than I am of what you might do. If she was talking to me, the whole world would know it. My heart pounded, lie, so hard I thought he would hear it. But he looked hard at my eyes and said, Okay. God, he's scary. Sarah Burns' room isn't off limits, so I had no trouble planting the notebook between the mattress and the box spring when Mr. Burns was talking at the nurse. But Mr. Burns was there when I went back to get it 2 days later, so I had to wait. Sarah Burns and I walked the courtyard again under his ever-present glare. The weather was spring-like, though that kind of weather never lasts long in February. And I carried my coat over my arm. Did you write in the book? Once. We walked in long, slow circles, with me babbling about Lemmy's class, Ellerby and Britain, Carver and the way he stood up to my mother, whatever I could think of to wear down Mr. Burns' patience. But he stood at the landing atop the stairs, waiting like some bird of prey. Then I told her about Jody, and to my surprise, I told her all about Jody. I told her how good it felt to be with her, and to have her want to spend time with me. Before I knew it, I was talking about the abortion. I had promised, but there I was, and I didn't think to try to stop myself until it was over. Tears ran down Sarah Burns' cheeks, and I had never seen that before. And I remember thinking absently how they meandered along the scarred crevices of her face rather than in a straight line, like they would have on a smooth one. I didn't know why she was crying, but I stopped and I stood looking at her, and then I hugged her. She didn't hug me back, but I felt her relax a bit and fall gently against me, and More tears came. When the tears dried, I took her back up the steps. "Passing Mr. Burns," I said. "Nothing, but it's a pretty safe bet he didn't believe me." Old man Burns's radar was working overtime, and he bird-dogged me every step, so I didn't dare go into her room for the notebook. I had to come back late the next day. Sir Burns was sitting through a group therapy session, so I just told the nurse I had left the notebook with my homework in her room. These people really do treat me like I work here. "Dear Eric, they've been telling me, in case I'm listening, to write things down ever since I got here, and now they would be satisfied, except they won't know, because if you show this to anybody, I'll rip your intestines out your intestines and strangle you with them. I have never trusted anyone completely, not even you, and I don't know if I do yet. I'll find out by whether or not I give you this, or just rip it up. Here goes. I can't ever go home again. My dad is getting crazier, and like I said the other day, there's nothing too mean for him to do if he thinks he needs to. Eric, just believe that, and don't get stupid and try to call the child protection people or the cops. They can only help after something's happened, and the threats they make don't mean anything to my dad. I came here because I thought I was going to kill myself, and even though it seemed like a good idea, I was afraid. I needed someplace safe to decide if I could or should do it. I considered running away, but I might as well just admit it. I'm so ugly that even if I do get away from him, my life will always be like this. There's no running from what he did. For a long time, I thought the trick was to make myself as mean as he was. That's what Crispy Pork Rinds was all about. I wanted to be as mean as I could to all the people who had been mean to me, and I needed my dad then, because being around him kept me feeling that way. But then I got up here and things changed. They care about you here, and I've seen some kids that have a lot more wrong with them than I have, except you can't see it. There's a boy here who was shut up in his closet when he was 3 years old with his puppy that his stepdad killed. He was there for at least a day, but probably it was longer. And there's a girl who watched her dad kick her little brother to death from a place under the stairs where he couldn't see her. And she still hates herself for not stopping him, but she was only 6. I was sitting in the group, pretending I'd been beamed up when she told that story. And all of a sudden, she was shrieking and crying, and she ran across the circle and hugged me and told me not to give up, and that she feels on the inside like I look on the outside. But she couldn't stand it if I gave up, because the ones of us who are scarred have to stick together. I wanted to talk and tell her I would stay and fight, but I couldn't, because if I talk, they'll think I'm better and send me home. It hurts so much inside me, I can hardly stand it. And I've thought more about killing myself, but I know I won't. I feel worse for their lives than I do for my own, except I wish I could hide my scars on the inside like them. I just want to be able to keep mine a secret some of the time. I'm writing this because I don't have to give it to you. Anyway, ever since the girl hugged me, I know I'm not the only one in the world who hurts, or even the person who hurts the worst. If the persons who hurt the worst stay, then I can too. I've started having these dreams about when my mother was still around. I was pretty, Eric. I was pretty. People said that. In these dreams, I see myself that way, and even though I know something was really wrong with my mother, it still feels like love when I remember it. And they aren't like real dreams, they're like memories. Our group counselor says they're important because we can hitch our new lives to them. I remember how my mother and I used to hide after my dad beat her up, and we'd hold each other in the dark. But I also remember her laughing and playing with me when she was gone. She loved me in her way, Eric. She really did. It's hard to stay mean when you remember how that feels. I forgot about it until I got here and saw these kids trying to dig out the little bits of love in their lives. And when I saw they could find them, I started to look for mine. I owe these kids a lot. Sometime before I leave, I'll have to talk because I need to tell them they've made things better for me. I also need to tell them about my life because it isn't fair that I know about them and they don't know about me. And I know I have to quit remembering my mother as loving me because it hurts too much. There's only one way she can help me now, and that's to come back and tell the truth and put that son of a bitch away. The ink color has changed because it's the next day. It was hard to let you take this. I was relieved yesterday when you didn't get a chance to get it out of my room, but I can't let myself chicken out now. I'm out of good choices. And then there's you. When we were younger, I kept you around because you were an easy friend. And it's only been since I got here, since that girl hugged me, that I figured out if I have a chance, it'll be because I let somebody like me. You saved me, Eric. God, remember when you first turned out for the swim team and you started losing all that weight and got scared I'd think you were leaving me? So you ate like 2 pigs instead of 1? When I found out you were staying fat for me, I went home and cried and cried. Nobody ever did anything like that for me. I cried again the other day when you told me about that Jody girl. And you might as well know. It's because I was afraid you'll go away from me, Eric. I know I'm not pretty anymore, Eric, but I'm a girl under all this mess. I don't love you or anything, at least not like that. But it makes me afraid. I also cried because you told me she had an abortion. And there have been so many times in my life I wish that's what I had been. These kids up here, they act like the toughest kids in the world, just like me. But this is the first time I've ever seen under that toughness. In anybody else or in me. I'm really scared because if I'm going to have a life, I'm going to have to act different. And I don't know if I can. So there it is. And by God, I'm going to give this to you, and you better not give it to anybody else. And one other thing. When I start talking again, don't expect me to act like this letter all the time. Because I won't. I need to talk to you off the record, I said, standing on Lemry's porch after midnight. You want to stand out here and freeze, she said, pulling her robe tight, or would you like to come in? In a light, she saw the red rims around my eyes. Moby, what's the matter? Sure we won't bother your husband? She smiled. My husband goes to work out at 5 in the morning. He does not wake up for midnight callers. Now, what's the matter? I burst into tears. Lemry put her hand on my back and guided me to the couch. Sit, tell me what's the matter. God, I think my heart is going to break. Is this about Jody? I shook my head. That would be easy. Tell me. It has to be off the record. I'll promise if it's at all possible. I'll keep it to myself, Moby. But if it requires outside help, I always have to consider that. I watched her carefully. You'll just have to take a chance. It boiled down to this. Somebody a whole lot smarter than me and Sarah Burns needs to help keep her old man off her and get a start on the life she has got a glimpse of writing in that letter. If I didn't do something, Sarah Burns would either get dragged back home by her dad or she'd run away and be alone. The letter was clear. Shaky as I was her only friend. I'd rather have her hate my guts and be safe than love me and be alone. I handed Lemry the letter. She read it, and tears rolled out of her eyes like big sad pearls. And I knew she'd do the right thing, because she felt just like me. She read it again and said, She's right, Moby. Her mother's the only person who can set this straight. We better find her. Chapter 11, Analysis. This is a tough chapter. Really tough chapter to read because we get to some sensitive topics here. We hear about what Sarah's been up to. She communicates through a journal, which is great. Journaling is a fantastic way to get your thoughts out, and she uses that to tell Eric about what she's been experiencing in the hospital. And she tells some stories about some kids that are just really hard to hear, hard to even read out loud, I gotta tell you. And fortunately, they're very realistic. People have done some horrible things, and it's just tragic. And we see a choice that Eric is forced to make, sort of a lose-lose proposition. He needs to help Sarah Burns, but he doesn't feel he has the capacity, the ability to do it. And so he has to decide if he's going to break her trust and bring somebody else into the problem-solving circle. And he does, and he brings in his teacher and coach, Mrs. Lemry, or Ms. Lemry. And it's important to know that when you tell certain people certain things, there's different kinds of responses. So teachers and counselors and administrators are something that are called mandatory reporters. And a mandatory reporter is a person who, if you tell them something about abuse or violence or any kind of act like that, we're required by law to report it. We can't just go, oh, that kid's making it up. If you come and tell us about any kind of event that we think has any degree of credibility, and usually even if we don't think it has credibility, we will share that. And so with that, the issue becomes he tells her, and now Lemry is required by law to do something. And what does that look like? And we have to continue to read to find out.